Yo, what's going on everybody? Freaky Dude 99 here, coming at you with another build. This time we're doing the Void Titan. I know you've all been wanting it super badly, and this build is quite a doozy. I've been running it against all of the endgame content I could get, and wow, is it just been amazing. As you can see from the footage here, we're in the Legend Heist, and then as well as I'll switch over and you'll see the Legend Seraph Station solo. Now, I did get through the entire mission all solo on Legend difficulty, and the other thing is I went through both of the arenas. The first one with the 3 Brigs, and then the final boss against Praxis. Probably the fastest I've ever done it solo with this build. So this has been really fun to make. It's been really fun build crafting it. So let's jump into the subclass and the abilities and get right down. Now, starting off with the super, we're rocking Word of Dawn. 1, because Bubble Titans are the best boys. 2, it has a way lower cooldown. You can see a little bit from the footage, but I get my super back so quickly, it is insane. Plus, getting that increased weapon damage and the overshield from sitting in the bubble is very nice to have, especially in that endgame content where you're constantly taking damage. Moving on, of course, we're using Rally Barricade because of that lower base cooldown. We want that low as possible so we can constantly use it and get an overshield from popping our barricade. Of course, we're using Shield Throw. Now, personally, this is a preference thing. I use Shield Throw because 1, you can throw it out quicker, you can get that overshield from it in life-threatening situations, and you don't need to build up a sprint just to pop it against an enemy, as well as run against an enemy and possibly put yourself in a bad position. Now for the grenade, again, it's personal preference. I use Vortex because Vortex is just lovely, provides great damage, sucks them in, and hey, it looks good. Now for our first aspect, we're rocking Bastion. It makes it so whenever we cast our super, it grants overshield to nearby allies, as well as whenever we put down our barricade, it grants us overshield to us and our allies. And it also adds a slow regenerating overshield whenever we stand behind it. That is just lovely to have because we constantly want our overshield up, we constantly want it running because it fuels this build, as you'll see. Now for our second aspect, we're using Offensive Bulwark. This makes it so while we have an overshield or are inside our Word of Dawn, our grenade charges significantly faster and we have increased melee range and damage. And our melee final blows extend the duration of your overshield. Plus we get an additional shield throw if we're rocking Sentinel Shield. We're not, but hey, if you want to rock it, you can. Now this is lovely. 1, for that grenade recharge, we are absolutely eating up that grenade recharge. And 2, that melee range and damage. What that does is when we have our overshield on and we just use our uncharged melee, it actually turns it into a charged melee. So spawning things with a melee wellmaker, we don't need our shield throw up, and instead we just need to have an overshield on and to kill an enemy with a just basic melee. Now for the first fragment, we're rocking Starvation, which makes it so whenever we pick up an orc power, we get Devour, which makes it so our final blows give us full health, as well as grant us grenade energy and extend the duration of Devour, which is just lovely. It makes it so lovely for any endgame build to have Devour running. Now for the second fragment, we're rocking Echo of Exchange. This makes it so our melee final blows grant grenade energy. Now this makes it so our shield throw grants grenade energy, but as well as when we have our overshield and we do our uncharged melee, that also will grant us grenade energy on final blows. This is wonderful as it makes us have our grenade up pretty much all the time. And then for the final fragment, we're doing Echo of Undermining. This makes it so our void grenades weaken targets. This is so great because, as I just said, we're constantly going to be having our grenade up. And if we constantly have a grenade up, that means we're constantly weakening enemies. If we're constantly weakening enemies, we're constantly doing major amounts of damage. So that is it for the subclass. Moving on to the weapons. The key point right here is going to be the one and only Fighting Lion. Fighting Lion is wonderful. One, because it's a primary, which means you don't need to rely on special ammo. You just need to rely on having the weapon and having the catalyst, because the catalyst helps so much. So Fighting Lion, fantastic weapon to have. As you see from the gameplay, it does some great damage, and it's just a blast to use a grenade launcher. Now for our primary, I'm using a hand cannon Fatebringer. I'll also use a pulse rifle, and that just calls for whatever the champions call for. If there's a barrier champ, I use a pulse rifle. Thanks, Postmaster. If there's a barrier champ, I use a pulse rifle. If there's an overload champ, I'll use a submachine gun. I just use whatever it really calls for. And then, of course, for the heavy, I'm using the Taipan. Taipan is just wonderful. Of course, if you have yourself a crafted version, or even just a regular uncrafted version with triple tap firing line, God, the damage is just insane. So, of course, grab yourself that, and you will just have a wonderful time rocking those weapons. Starting off with the armor. For the helmet, we're doing Arc Energy, and we're doing melee well makers. So whenever we get a kill with our shield throw or a kill with our uncharged overshield melee, we're spawning a well. And then of course we're using harmonic siphon, so with any kills with our void weapons, spawn orbs of power. And then we're using hands-on, so any kills we get with our shield throw or our uncharged melee with an overshield, getting us super energy, so we're always going to have our super up. And then I am using a resilience mod. Of course, in this build, you're going to want to focus resilience and discipline. Now, next up for the gauntlets, of course, we're using Synthoceps. Synthoceps is wonderful. Of course, if you don't know, it increases our melee lunge range and improves our melee and super damage when we're surrounded. Of course, the super damage doesn't matter, but that improved melee is really helpful. We're using Synthoceps because it allows us to, one, break down shields that we wouldn't normally be able to break down, and two, be able to get way more kills with our overshield melee, because that overshield melee may be stronger, but it's not significantly stronger so much in endgame content that you can wipe the floor with enemies. You're gonna want Synthoceps on there because one, it's gonna make your shield throw even more powerful and actually be able to dish out some damage, and two, it's gonna make it so you're in some tough spots and you can melee your way out. And then for the mods, of course, we're rocking Void Energy, so we can take advantage of Well of Tenacity, which gives us a bonus to resist for a short period of time after we pick up a Void Well. And then for our two middle mods, we're doing the champion mods. Now, we're rocking Unstoppable Grenade Launcher because we're using Fighting Lion. This is wonderful, as no one likes using Unstoppables, so if you can use this, that means you can carry any team that you run with. As well as just using this mod and being able to slot it into a build just allows so much more flexibility and feels like you have a lot more room in how you're able to change your build up, especially when you're going from content with lots of champions to content with not a lot of champions. Moving on to the chest piece, we're rocking Void Energy, and we're going to be doing Phantomites. Whenever we pick up that Void Elemental Well, our Void weapons are going to be getting a damage boost. And then of course we're rocking Concussive Dampener because, wow, area effect damage sucks. As well as we're using Void Resistance because, hey, the new dungeon, there's lots of Void damage, but of course you can switch that up to an Energy Diffusion Substrate, or melee damage, sniper damage, whatever you want to go, it's up to you. This is what I recommend though. Moving on to the leg armor, we're rocking stasis energy so we can use elemental time dilation. This is going to make it so our well of tenacity resist and our font of might damage bonus are going to last longer. It's wonderful. We love it. And then of course we're using Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power is going to grant a small amount of energy to our ability with the least amount of energy. This is wonderful just to have. As well as Absolution, reduce all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an Orb of Power. We're going to be spawning Orbs of Power all the time with Fighting Lion, so this just makes it wonderful, as whenever we're picking up Orbs of Power and running around, we're just getting our abilities back super quickly. And then finally, for the class item, the Titan Mark, we're rocking solar energy so we can use wonderful bountiful wells. This is going to make it so whenever we get that melee kill with our shield throw or our overshield melee, it's going to spawn 2 melee wells, and that's just going to make it so we're going to get our abilities back faster, as well as Will of Tenacity and Font of Might are going to be going to their max amount of value, and there's going to be an extra well on the ground if you want to leave it and pick it up whenever you're going into damage phase. Then for the second one, we're doing Bomber, reduce grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Of course, this is a wonderful mod to have, as we're gonna constantly be using our grenade, and we're gonna constantly be wanting to have our grenade, which means this is wonderful to be using. And we're gonna be using our class ability pretty much all the time to grant us overshield. And then of course, Monochromatic Maestro. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Monochromatic Maestro is a wonderful mod, absolutely amazing. If you are doing solo play like I was doing in the Legend Seraph Station, I was using Solo Operative, as Solo Operative is 10 out of 10 the best thing to be using if you are soloing things. If you are not soloing things, I would highly recommend Monochromatic Maestro, as it is just wonderful the amount of damage it actually gives you. And I saw some people talking about Weakened Clear. The thing about Weakened Clear is that it's really good to have, but the one thing about it is it only applies the Weaken effect when you're damaging a boss, damaging a champion, or breaking a combatant's shield. And that's nice, but it's really... in a mission like Legend Seraph Station, and even in some of the content like Legend Heist, this doesn't actually help out a whole lot, because you're not running into a whole lot of enemies who have shields, and shields that you can easily take down with a grenade launcher. Thank you, Postmaster, I'll deal with you later. Now, I would just recommend using Monochromatic Maestro, because then you're not relying on having to hit an enemy with a shield or hit a boss to get that weaken and get that damage bonus. Because with Monochromatic, you're still getting that damage bonus, except you're getting it not only to your weapons, but also to your abilities, and you're getting it pretty much all the time. As long as you are playing the game, you have that damage bonus running. So those are my thoughts on these seasonal mods. With this build, I 100% recommend using Monochromatic Maestro over Weakened Clear, but if you want to use Weakened Clear, go for it. I'm not in control of any of you. So, that is the Void build. Now, this has been wonderful. I've been doing build crafting on this and just been testing it out, trying to find a build for a Void that works and works well enough into Endgame that you can just slaughter through, because that's what I like to build my builds for. Endgame, but also fun. One, if the build isn't fun, why play it? And two, if the build can't handle pretty much any piece of content you throw at it, then why are you using that build? Because right now we don't have loadouts, and it's really hard to switch out all of your mods and all of your energy just to come up with a new build for a different subclass. So this build, hey, it's fantastic. I highly recommend you check it out, because it requires some very easy weapons to have, weapons you probably all have, and yeah, I've been loving it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. This has been Freaky Dude 99. Thank you so much for the support you've been showing on the videos recently. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to like, comment, drop a comment on any new build you have recommendations on or want to see, or any just, thing you want to say to me. It's been good. It's been fantastic making videos, and I'm so excited for things to come. So peace out, everyone.